So today we start back at beams 1 through 10, and we're going to locate the various posts. And of course the first thing we've done is to locate the foremast. It's so nice to see that I didn't make a mistake in the forward section of the boat. So this pillar that I had put in when I first lined up the beams fits in the correct spot, which means everything in the front I got correct. I'm now going to check to see if the second one that I put in place lines up with beam number 4. In the process of recalibrating all the aft beams, I actually had to cannibalize some of the forward beams, so number 4 is going to have to be remade. And I'm using the same method as I used on the aft section of making some balsa spacers so that I get everything square and to the correct dimensions. Now the front beams are all laid out, all parallel, and we are ready to put the posts in. This photograph was taken from book 3, and it's Greg's model, and you'll see that the deck hook and the eking pieces, that the recesses for the carlins and the ledges were cut out before the piece was assembled. I'm afraid I don't have the skill to do that, and when I have done it, it's actually not ended up parallel or at 90 degrees. By now you'll realize that I'm not putting all the infrastructure, the various rooms, below the lower deck. Other than the well and shot locker, this is the only physical room that I'm going to build. Reasoning is the same one that is applied. If I can build these, I can build all of those, and I'm locking the whole ship up, and you're not going to see anything. So it's really just for my learning process that I'll do these once they're not going to be seen. We've installed the beams 1, 2, and 3 and the various pieces in, and it's turned out to me much easier than I thought it would be. The biggest challenge really is, again, trying to line up everything and trying to make sure everything is square. Made a few errors. Some I've corrected, some I'm going to leave in place because, again, they're not that fatal, and once I've learned what I'm going to do, I'm not really too concerned. Again, my piece of paper with all the notes from the chapter. I actually prefer to make up a balsa template because it's really much easier to shape with the sander, and that's what I did here. And then I've cut the piece out and again had to remake the first beam, and that's all done, pinned, so we're going to stick it in place now. So here we go. We've used the square to make sure we're lining up everything. I wish I could keep a very fine pencil point. So I'm having to use my knife to mark some of the pieces. I have to say that's probably the biggest challenge, has been trying to keep everything square. And when I made pieces or stuck them outside of the boat, I really had some problems with that. Maybe the only challenge is trying to make sure that the thicknesses are exactly the same when you look down on it. The rounded surfaces here and the ends as they meet the various beams should be exactly the same. These angle pieces can be problematic, but again, once you start from the center line of the boat and move to the ends, you should get everything in the correct perspective. So no hanging knees as yet. Those don't happen until 6 and 7 and 11 and 12. Accuracy can really only be determined using a knife or a very fine blade to mark off the various spots. I found that it's really too easy to make an error with the thickness of a pencil point. So what I tend to do is mark it with the knife and then put the pencil point on afterwards. And if necessary, use a rubber. The pencil point will mark the cut. One of the challenges we've had is when installing the ledges, because we are installing them institute, in other words, each piece by piece, rather than cutting the pieces or shaping the pieces off the model. When I go to, let's say, if I had to put a ledge here, I would be able to hold the file and go up and down, which is great until you reach here and you realize you can't access the knee to make the rebate to stick this piece in, this ledge in. So I haven't figured out yet how I'm going to do that, other than when I'm putting the knees in to establish this point before I stick it. As a result, some of the ledges are installed flush against the carlins. It just was no other way to get them in. Hopefully I'll get better by the time I reach the stern. Although I didn't cover it in past videos, just to restate that the square edges of the pillars are all chamfered slightly, leaving about 6 to 8 inches on the top and the bottom. So I've been doing it, I just haven't been showing it. And then finally we are going to stick the aft end of the forward platform. This really lined up perfectly. Again, one of the few times that I actually haven't made an error. Somehow got it right the first time. We're going to take a little move away from the framing and start looking at the other protrusions, and the riding bit is the first one that we're coming across. Again, the instructions are fairly straightforward. As I've done in the past, I've written down everything. It's a conversation I have with the book back and forward. Read the chapter, write it down, read the chapter again, make the changes, and then eventually I make up two pieces. These are 13 inches square at the top, and at the bottom there will be 9 inches, I believe. And again, it tells you that there's a taper, so the taper of the 9 inches is different from the top, and you need to follow the instruction in the book. Drawing the taper can be a bit of a challenge. You can try and plane it off or sand it off. I prefer to sand it, and most of the time I sand it on a flat block to make sure that I don't lose the square. My plan was actually that this would be a temporary piece, but the truth is it's come out so well that I may not make a second one. I really won't know that until I install the other decks, because it's only then that I'll be able to work out the top side of it and exactly where those fits. So I'm not under any pressure right now. This is not going to be permanently installed. It's really just there to check to make sure that everything lined up and fits perfectly. But who knows, this might turn out to be the final piece. As you may have noticed, I'm getting better at installing the columns and the ledges. Only using PVA glue, and I'm getting the recesses in now. So it's at least my learning curve is improving as I go along. The collins and the ledges still making me struggle. Again, I've had to, after I've stuck them, came back and checked them, and I don't know, they mysteriously go out of square. So all I can say is hopefully by the end of this I will really have developed the technique to get everything square. In any case, getting close to the 10-minute mark, and so this is 1 through 5 all finished, stuck and squared off, and in the next video we'll go from 6 right through till 10. So we'll see you then.